Rentals, y'all, rentals. I recently made the mistake of helping clients find a rental in the DC area. And I will just say it, I barely made it out with my sanity. I don't normally handle rentals. I focus on home sales, but this one favor reminded me exactly why I steer clear and why the rental market here is a full-on nightmare. Low inventory, outrageous requirements, zero communication from listing agents, and landlords treating renters like they're lucky just to be considered. It's like the Hunger Games, but with less charm and more application fees. If you are looking for a rental or just wondering why it feels impossible, stick around because by the end of this video, you're going to know the real reason the system is broken and hopefully what you can do to survive it. My name is Melissa Terzis and I'm DC Real Estate Mama. This is my channel and I talk about all things real estate in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, or as we affectionately call it here, the DMV, not the Department of Motor Vehicles. All right, let's dive into all this fun stuff. So I had clients who contacted me. They actually found me from these videos with the intention of buying a home. Great. We went back and forth for several months because they weren't sure what route they wanted to take. They own other properties in different areas of the country, and they just weren't sure if DC was going to be this long-term move for them. So they actually ended up deciding to rent. And that's usually where I see myself out. But they were super stressed out trying to manage all the logistics of a more than cross-country move, coming from Hawaii to DC, getting their kids into schools, doing daycare, doing the school lotteries, the private school applications. It was a lot. Plus, they were so dang nice. I was like, okay, Mama, I can see the stress on your face. She was sitting in the middle of a pile of boxes on our FaceTime call the last time we FaceTime chatted before we got this search going. And I said, all right, don't worry, we're going to do this. I was confident, and little did I know I had no reason to be. Drama ensues. So now that we're on the other end of this, I can actually tell you that I have no idea how anyone does this. Usually I have the answers in my videos. I just have more questions this time. As my client said, it's easier to buy than it is to rent there, it seems. Indeed, it is. There's just a constant influx of people who are moving to DC for a shorter term and for whom buying just does not make sense. Unfortunately, in the DC area rental market, it's time-wasting amateur hour with the process of finding and renting a home. First thing to know, not all rentals are listed in our multiple list service. This is the first thing you've got to understand is that there's multiple places that you can find rentals. Sometimes people find rentals on sites like MBO, which is military by owner. I looked at a couple of these homes for my clients. The owners were never local. They live in the home at one point maybe, but now they're in another dimension and they haven't been to their property like at all recently. Then there's rentals that you'll find on Zillow or Trulia. My client sent a lot of these to me and every single one that wasn't listed with an agent was a colossal disaster. We're going to talk about that. From houses that were already rented and the status wasn't changed to houses that looked like a hoarder lived there to the inability to get an appointment to tour. Chasing these is like incredibly difficult. I felt like I was losing my mind playing whack-a-mole with all these different property owners. So with both military by owner and the portals like Zillow or Trulia, the reason that they're listed here is because the owner does not want to pay a commission. This is because truly the 1 month's rent that is split between the tenant's agent, where usually the tenant's agent gets 25% and the landlord's agent gets 75% of that 1 month, is really what they're trying to save. Now, just paying it might solve so many issues, but some people prefer to save that money and just do it themselves. At best, it creates a lot more work for the tenant and the tenant's agent if they have one. At worst, we're going to get to that. So next, then there's the property management companies. These are similarly difficult to deal with. First, they really never answer phone or email because property management is by its nature incredibly busy. Second, they force things upon you that make them extra money but are things you may not want. One example is when they force you to join some type of resident program that you pay for, and then they'll cover certain repairs. With the properties my husband and I own, we just pay for the repairs. The property managers just coordinate them. I would never pass that cost on to a tenant, and I don't really understand, but that's clearly a money-making thing that they force people to join. So the MLS is the other place to find rentals. This is usually the best case scenario. This is what we as real estate agents have access to. Usually having a licensed agent on the other side of the transaction means that you at least kind of have a fighting chance of getting somebody professional. Maybe they'll post professional photos. They'll answer their phone, hopefully, and easily allow for appointment scheduling. But even this isn't a cakewalk. That like drive-by photo from the car where you can see the rear view mirror in it, Those happen. The dark photos where you can't even get a good look at the house, those happen too. Why is that? Well, next thing to know, not all listing agents who handle rentals are normal. Yes, you heard it here. It's totally hit or miss with agents who handle rentals. This is just a different structure and line of our business. With sales, we procure the client. We work through their home search. We get to know them very personally. We secure their home. We get them through the contract all the way to closing and beyond. You could easily work with a client for months or years before you are ever, at the end of the transaction, before you get paid. And this is just like, we are trained that this is a long-term relationship and it takes work to cultivate and maintain it. Now with rentals, it's like more transactional. There's less relationship building and business building, especially if this is just like the part of the market the agent works in. I know agents who prefer rentals because it's quick money. You show the client some places, they decide pretty quickly because the market moves very fast here. They apply, they get approved, and then they have to put up 1 month's rent right away. That first month's rent gets written to the agent's brokerage and then split out between whoever the parties are paid, and then the lease is signed. Not at move-in. You don't get paid at move-in, you get paid right away. So this means you might get some sort of like fly-by-night kind of feeling with some of these agents. They're only in it for the quick bucks and they don't really have what it takes maybe to like build that long-term relationship or to wait like the months and months to get paid. So that's just kind of like a little bit of a clue potentially to what could be happening behind the scenes. Now, my clients applied to one rental and I was in communication with the agent who was, in fact, a doofus. And he said he sent the application over to his clients and would get back to me after he spoke with them. Then the status changed to pending the next day. I called him and he said, "Oh, I didn't call you? Well, I meant to call you. They rented it to someone else." No, duh, loser. Of course I know that. Would have been nice to have a courtesy phone call, jackass. Next thing to know, the condition of overpriced rental homes is deplorable. So when there's an agent involved in listing a rental, I almost never really find that the price is just like outrageous, right? The agent's gonna pull the comps, they've done their homework, and they come up with a price that makes sense. When you have owners who list and price their own property, they usually do what I would call delusional pricing models. They price for something that makes no sense for the condition of the home. I rang the doorbell at one such home. I was taking video of the siding that was falling off the house and the 4-foot weeds in the yard at the same time. The house actually looked abandoned. When I got inside, it was no better. The house smelled terribly. The deck was like rotted and falling off the back of the house where it should have been attached, and the backyard looked like a dump. My client was like, "Well, my girls aren't gonna play back there." No, I mean, rats probably don't even play back there. It was obvious that the owner hadn't been in or near his house in a very long time. Next thing to know, rentals get snapped up in hours. This is like the hardest thing for people to grasp. It really is. There's no rhyme or reason to the rental market here. People will apply sight unseen to multiple properties. The times that I've listed rentals, I actually will say, like, I don't take applications from people who haven't seen it in person or via video. But many agents will take these applications and they'll process them so that they can just get it rented quickly and not have to deal with it. Does this mean that you may have to apply to a house that you barely know the condition of? Yup. It happens. Don't panic. You just need a better plan. So how about some intrusive landlords, everybody? That's next up on the list. I cannot express how many idiots I had to deal with. I understand that people are trying to rent their houses because they want to save that 1 month commission. But almost all of them have no idea really how to do this efficiently or correctly. They create a whole host of other issues because they don't play by rules. One landlord asked how old my client's children were. Can't ask that. They're protected class. I vaguely said, "Oh, they're little." She still asked me again, and I said I just didn't know. When she finally said that she would lease to my clients, she wanted to have a phone call with them. This is where it went off the rails even more. She asked them on video, like a video chat, to talk to her, and she then wanted to see what their current house looked like. She wanted to see what kind of housekeepers they were. Then when she called their references, she asked the boss at the job, where one of them holds a top secret security clearance, what the reason was for their move and how old their children were. It was flagged. They did not respond. It got flagged. And then all of a sudden it was like, alarms were going off. "Lady, come on. My clients ended up not taking the house." And then she called me to ask me why. And I just said, "They felt like you were just a little bit too intrusive with your phone calls." And she's like, "Well, I just needed the children's ages for the lease." And it's like, "But why did you ask their boss?" I said, "You can't ask how old the kids are as part of the approval process. You can't. Whatever. I don't even know why she asked the boss. Anyway, she also wanted to build in an escalation to a 3-year lease. I understand why somebody wants to do that, because money, but then why would anybody on the tenant side bother to sign a 3-year lease? They could just sign for 1 year. This is stupid, because if they sign for a year and then they move out because you're being an idiot and like whatever, you're going to lose however many days that you can never get rent for anyway while you turn the property over. My clients didn't like this approach at all, and they just chose a different rental. Now, those owners similarly asked some intrusive questions. They wanted a copy of my client's orders for why they were coming here. I mean, why? Nobody should have to prove why they're moving somewhere, and why should they have to? The landlords also said that there were some low mortgage balances, so they wanted to ensure that the military housing allowance would cover the rent and see the leases for those houses to make sure that they were rented. Understandable, but still ridiculously intrusive. And this is kind of like what it takes when you want to have to deal with it. When it was all said and done, we toured 10 homes, and it was an unbelievable amount of work. From phone calls with flaky owners, property managers, and other agents, the poor condition of many of these homes, the pricing being completely inflated, and the competition, I can officially say that it's easier for people to buy a home here than it is to rent one. If you're going to go the rental route, what you need to do is make sure that you're only dealing with things where there's an agent on both sides of the transaction. That means you bring your own agent, and then there should be an agent on the other side. If you chase things that are listed like in these portals, just know that you're kind of like chasing a needle in a haystack. You're potentially in competition with all these other people who are doing the same thing. And the reason that they're looking in those areas is either A, desperation, or B, they like maybe don't have the credit that they need to rent. And they're hoping that if they go direct to landlord, the landlord would be a little bit more lenient on that. So ultimately, that's kind of like, I at least how to try to keep your sanity, but also know that property values in this area always go up. And if you're going to be here for a decent amount of time, and with these guys, they're here 3 years, but I said, if you extend for 1 more year, you're probably going to wish you had bought something, because by 4 years, it starts to make sense. But they ultimately already had too many rental properties. So like for them, it was just like, we don't really need another one. But if this was like their first property they were buying, or the only property that they would have, I would say that that's potentially what you want to do. So I am Melissa Terzis. That is what's happening in our crazy rental market here right now. My contact info is coming next.